I think that came from Cleveland. I think, hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast, coming at you just a few days before Christmas Day. Kenny, can you believe it went so fast, right?
Yeah, it's wild. I guess side note, I don't know if she's gonna listen to it, but shout out to Booby, happy birthday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually doing this on her birthday, but yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's just gone so fast. Are we all prepared there in the McQuillan household?
Yeah, we're ready. Well, we have all the presents. We still have to wrap something, but
okay. All right.
Everything's bought, so that's good.
All right. Well, you got to wait till both of them fall asleep to wrap.
Yeah.
Hey, let's jump right into it. Obviously, COVID really having a huge impact on all the sports teams. We could get a little bit into the NHL. They seem to be taking some major action starting today, I think. But obviously, it hurt the NFL, so turned out to be actually kind of fun to watch a couple of games these last few days. Last night I was obviously watching the Knicks, but kind of went back and forth with, I didn't realize they were on at the same time. I figured that would be a doubleheader, but the Rams Seahawks, which wasn't on here, they showed the Eagles and Redskins, I'm sorry. Eagles and the Washington football team, which turned out to be a pretty interesting game. We got to see at least about the end of the third quarter is when the Knicks ended, so was able to flip over. But the Browns played late Monday afternoon, and they lost. And there were several players there that I had never heard of that were playing. So that puts the Browns in a pretty precarious position. I think they're 7-7, right? So
yep.
What's the feeling there in Cleveland, and what was your take there on them losing kind of last minute there to the Raiders?
Well, first of all, I do think it's cool having like these random Monday, Tuesday games, but for me, it throws me off as to what day it is.
Yeah.
Because just all of a sudden now we're gonna have games in a couple days, and then also there's gonna be games on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I think at this point, first of all, the Browns, I want to point to one play. It was I think about 40-50 seconds left. All I had to do was tackle the guy in bounds.
Uh-huh.
That's all you had to do. I more than likely would have won that game.
Uh-huh.
But in reality, it looks like at this point, I'm going to say the Brown season seems to be pretty much over.
Wow.
While they're only I think they're only a game out of the actual playoff picture. These are the three teams they have to play next. And it's actually by record, the toughest schedule in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
They're going at Green Bay on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And then at Pittsburgh and then home against Cincy. So they don't have it easy.
Yeah.
But then also, if they finish tied with, say, the Chargers have the tiebreaker over them. If they finish tied with the Ravens, they might have the tiebreaker. But also, they don't have the tiebreaker over the Raiders. I don't know if they have it over the Broncos. A lot of the teams that they would be fighting against, they are on the losing end of a lot of tiebreakers. So, 10-7 might make it, but that means that you'd have to beat Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and he's been playing really well.
Yeah.
You got to beat Big Ben. The Browns have beaten the Steelers once in Pittsburgh in the last 20-something years.
Oh, wow.
And then Cincinnati, they kind of handle. We might talk about this a little bit later, but the same way that it seems like the Saints always have Tom Brady's number, it seems like Baker Mayfield always plays well against the Bengals.
Yeah.
So we'll see there, but still, that's a tall order. If you want to blame COVID, you could. It's kind of frustrating when you have 24 guys out because of COVID, and then a few days later, they're like, well, we're going to change everything. So I don't know if you saw this, the NFL now is only going to test vaccinated players if they show symptoms. So that essentially would have meant that a lot of the guys that were out would have been playing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that it is what it is. You can't control COVID. You can't control injuries. The the bottom line is, it seems like this Browns team hasn't been able to finish games when they needed to.
Yeah.
Go all the way back at the beginning of the season. They had Kansas City up, I believe, 24-3 at the half or something along those lines. You got to win that game.
Yeah.
The Browns have a top 5 defense. They couldn't stop the Chargers late in that game.
Yeah.
Going back and forth, back and forth. One stop would have won that game. Really, like, you look at their whole season, they're 7-7, but really they're only like probably quality win. Like, if you're talking college type of stuff, the only quality win really is against Cincinnati. Against the big teams like Kansas City, they lost a heartbreaker. They got destroyed by the Patriots. They just really have, like, they split against the Ravens, but like the game that they won, Lamar Jackson got hurt halfway through. So it's really tough to kind of gauge this team. I think you could probably say they're the most disappointing team in football, like as far as their expectations. And I don't know what this means moving forward. More than likely, I would say they'll probably bring back Baker because, I mean, he's had a very like choppy season. He hasn't looked healthy pretty much all year.
Yeah.
So really, if I'm Baker, I try to just shut it down so you don't get hurt more. But I don't know if he's going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's been bad. Also, you look at the whole OBJ saga and how since he's left, I mean, he's scoring touchdowns left and right. So it clearly wasn't OBJ that was the issue.
Yeah.
Maybe he still wasn't a fit, and I don't think he was a fit, but like it just looks really bad. Not the best of feelings here in Cleveland.
That is the feeling. Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Mayfield, though, this is a short week for them now. They have to play on Saturday after playing on Monday. You might as well say Monday night. So it's a short week for them by a day or so. You're right on the COVID stuff, and it was Mayfield who really spoke out about that, and then it seems like they changed it after he spoke out. I mean, it made sense, but every team has been hit here. Some ravaged a little bit more than others, but every single team has got a bunch of key players, on this COVID list. So I think that the Browns, I don't know if I'd go so far as they're the most disappointing team. They're definitely right up there. I think people expected them to have 11, 12, even 13 wins this year, building on last year. That's hard in the NFL, though. It really is. And they still could sneak in. I mean, there's so many teams still bunched together at 7-7. So they still could sneak in, but as you articulated, it's a tough road. Let me ask you about the Ravens, speaking of the Packers, right? The Ravens, huge 4:00 game, 4:30 game this past week. Got to watch most of that. And, I mean, if you're John Harbaugh and the Ravens don't get in, and by the way, their replacement quarterback has been pretty good. He hasn't been bad. He's been a good backup for Lamar Jackson. So I don't think he's been the reason here that they've gone into the skids a little bit. But going for these 2-pointers at the end of these 2 games here and now not getting either one of them and wind up losing as opposed to going for the tie and going into overtime, is that a thing that he's going to regret all the rest of the winter if they're, on the outside looking in the playoffs?
Yeah, and even like right now, they are tied with the Bengals. Imagine if they had just not gone for it on either of these, they'd be in first place. Yeah. And that's the difference between, the Bengals right now would be playing the Colts. If they sneak in, the Ravens would play the Patriots. So like, yeah, I don't know about that because I think the Colts are a scary team, but
they are. Oh my gosh, they really are. They really handle the Patriots well. I didn't see much of that, but saw the highlights. They really handle the Patriots well. Can I ask you this? What's really puzzling? Do you find it puzzling that they have the best kicker? He's hitting 66, 67-yard field goals, and he's so reliable anywhere, indoors or outdoors. And, when you have these kickers in the East in this time of year, to have that big leg really comes in handy because it's always windy, it's always cold. You have sometimes the bad weather, the snow, and he kicks at anything, But that's what's been surprising. And he's such a good coach, but that's been head scratching, man, that you got this kicker out there, and there's no guarantee he would have won those games in overtime, right? But still, I mean, if I got that kicker, I'm getting the extra point, and I'm relying on him in overtime.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I don't understand. Like, I see with like teams where the kickers miss 3 field goals in the game. Like, yeah. I know the Jets have had a lot of kicking issues. Like, if your team has a bad kicker, yeah, go for 2 because you don't trust your kicker. But you got a guy that's arguably the best kicker of all time. He set the record this year, not like 10 years ago or this year. He set a record for the longest field goal ever. And you're still just kind of like, well, we'll just try this 2-pointer. And like, to me, you gotta go with the sure thing.
Yeah, he's money. I mean, he doesn't miss. I mean, and he doesn't get nervous either. At the end of these games, he's just okay, with no big deal. Yeah, go ahead and call a timeout. You're not gonna ice me, It's a head scratcher, and it's a great matchup. Browns Packers. The Browns are going to be playing desperate. The Packers should be relatively desperate too because they don't have things locked up, but they're looking pretty good. And they, like you said, going into Green Bay, Christmas Day, I wouldn't want to do that. It's going to probably be cold, freezing cold there. And not that the Browns aren't used to playing in the cold weather, but that's the Packers, backyard. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm anxious to get your take now on Daniel Jones and the Giants. I know you've had some strong opinions. But, now he's out for the year, and he can't help that. I mean, he's hurt, obviously, out for the year. Does that really kind of delay a decision now with him? Or do you think that Joe Judge is and you said this kind of last week, that he's just so, tied to Daniel Jones now that there's no choice but to bring him back?
Yeah, in my opinion, it would be, okay, well, let's start looking at a replacement. But I think because he's hurt, they'll be like, well, we can't really fully evaluate how good he is. He only played 9 games this year. But I think one of the things that sticks out to me, and I looked this up because I was like, this is interesting. Daniel Jones hasn't played a full season at all. Third season.
Wow.
He played 13 games in 19, 14 last year, and 9 this year. So, and I know that's not a ton of missed time, but especially when you're coming off of a guy like Eli Manning, might be a little spoiled here. The guy never missed a game.
He never missed a game, yeah. He played hurt. He played all the time.
Yeah, he was always there. But it seems like, I don't know what it is. It just seems like this offense this year has just looked boring. I feel like every time I'm looking up, they're scoring in single digits. And it looks more and more like Saquon Barkley is looking more and more like one of these high profile college guys that's a bust in the NBA or in the NFL. Oh. And I hate saying that. Yeah. Because I really like Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And I really want him to thrive. But it just doesn't seem like it's been happening for him.
Yeah.
And I look at that draft too, and they could have had, I don't know, Josh Allen. They could have had, I know he didn't really pan out, but Sam Darnold. I don't know. I heard someone say it, and they were like, I was like, yeah, maybe it's true. You don't take a running back in the first round anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And the hindsight is 2020. Some people, it's not like Josh Allen went first overall anyway. I mean, the Browns went with Baker. But I don't know. Really, and I said this before, we've kind of said this offseason is huge for the Giants.
It is.
They've got 2 top 10 picks. They're going to have a new GM. You're probably running back the coach, running back the quarterback. Honestly, I would look at maybe in the second or third round, picking up another quarterback, have him sit behind Daniel Jones, give Jones a little bit of pressure. Because like maybe that's what Daniel Jones needs is like, well, maybe you're not going to be the long-term solution. You got to play better. You got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I agree with everything you said, and I'll say this: Emmitt Smith rushing record is safe for a long time because it's just a different era. You're right. I think running backs have such a short shelf life, you know, in the NFL now. Whereas that, you know, when I was a kid, 70s, 80s, you had running backs that, you know, started for years, 10, 12, even 15 years. Walter Payton and a few others that I can think of, Lydell Mitchell. I mean, there's some great running backs. Even Adrian Peterson had a really good, you know, long stretch in more recent times, but that just seems to be rare. I mean, even Derrick Henry, who's probably right now still the best running back in the league, or you know, probably this year is Jonathan Taylor, right? The guy with the Colts. But they just get beat up now so much. It's amazing. And I'll say Saquon Barkley up until the time he got injured. So I just think he hasn't recovered. Up until the time he got injured, he was still very, very special. He was, I mean, that first year, he was unbelievable. And up until the time, I guess it was week 2 or 3 in that second year when he got hurt, he just hasn't been the same since he got hurt. And, you know, I tied that in there. So, I mean, we can talk about so many running backs the last several years that once they got a little bit nicked up or they got hurt, they just never seem to recover. Ezekiel Elliott, even with the Cowboys, I mean, the guy was unbelievable. I mean, every once in a while you'll have a Marshawn Lynch who never seemed to get hurt, who retired and even came back and was still like running over people. But that's been rare over, I'd say, the last 10, 15 years in the NFL. I don't think anybody will come close to Emmitt Smith's record for quite some time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's not much else to talk about in the NFL. These are going to be, I think, a very exciting next 3 weeks. I mean, there's going to be a lot of meaningful games because there's really no teams that have anything sewed up. And we'll see if these teams that have kind of dominated, I mean, even Tampa, which, you know, looked like the best team a few weeks ago, and they get shut out. I mean, you know, like you said, New Orleans probably has their number in the regular season, but it's just going to be fun. New England, are they as good as they look? I mean, they got handled pretty good by Indy. So it's a lot of parity, which a lot of people don't like, but I actually like because it's just so hard to predict, you know. So can we take a few minutes and let me do a little celebratory dance here, even though I can't dance? The Mets, I thought it was the best move of their offseason, even with Scherzer and the free agents that they signed. I think the best move was bringing in a veteran manager. And, you know, Buck Showalter, I think, listen, you could criticize him. He's had, you know, he's never won a World Series or he's never gotten to a World Series. But the Mets, I thought, needed just that veteran presence. He's had a lot of success everywhere he's been. And, you know, he answered the questions pretty clearly on, is he an analytics guy? I think he's the perfect guy that does the combination. He goes by his 2 eyes, you know, because they asked him, hey, would you let a pitcher go, you know, 3rd time around the batting order? He's like, yeah. He's like, you know, but a lot of factors there. How many pitches has he thrown? How does he look to me? And you know, but he is a big analytics guy as well. He has a nice combination of it. But he's a veteran presence. Listen, the Mets aren't like this young team building anymore. They picked up a lot of veterans this offseason. You know, I'm hoping when this strike is over, you know, everything we heard was that they were really in on Chris Bryant. That would be the icing on the cake to get him to play third base every day. Now you got, or he could actually play outfield. He's pretty versatile. But I just thought it was the best move of the offseason. And I'm like, why did they do this the last few years instead of, you know, Mickey Callaway and, you know, and Rojas, both good baseball guys. Callaway, you know, terrible character guy, obviously, but, you know, he probably knew the game. He was a good pitching coach, obviously, for a long time. And Rojas, obviously, a good coach for a long time. But I always thought the Mets needed that veteran presence because, you know, they tend to have a veteran-type team. So what's your take on hiring Buck Showalter, who becomes another guy who's managed both the Yankees and the Mets, right? I think there's been a few guys that have done that. Yogi Berra, Joe Torre. I'm probably missing someone. Dallas Green, you know, managed both. But what's your take on the Mets bringing in Buck?
Yeah, well, I'll finish that for you. He's the fifth guy to manage both the Yankees and Mets.
Who did I miss?
Casey Stangles, the other one.
Oh, Casey. How could I miss that? Wow. Okay.
But there's a few things that stick out to me. First of all, I was listening to his interview on, I believe it was Carton and Roberts on The Fan. And something that he mentioned is the extensive background that they did on him. Doing a very thorough background check and everything like that. And Buck Showalter is a guy that's been around baseball for a long time.
Yeah.
Been a broadcaster the last several years. People know him.
Yeah.
But yet it seems like they still did their due diligence, which to me tells me that they've learned from the mistakes of the Mickey Callaway, whatever the GM guy.
Yeah, Jared Scott. Yeah.
So that's a great thing. And I think that means that the Mets actually did their homework. They did their research. Obviously, he was the best pick.
Yeah.
Noah Spada, great guy. But he's never managed a baseball team. That guy that they were looking at from the Rays, he's probably, both of those guys will probably be a manager at some point.
Yeah.
But the Mets don't need that. The Mets needed a shift. They needed a guy that's been there before, that knows how to win. And there's a lot of personalities on the Mets, and there was a lot of weird issues last year.
Yeah.
First of all, obviously, just the on the field performances in the second half were horrendous.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, they were.
But they I feel under a guy like Buck, that wouldn't have happened. And then the weird stuff, whether you're talking Lindor with the raccoon rat weird fight situation.
Yeah.
Javi Baez with the thumbs down, a lot of that stuff. I feel Buck Showalter is a really good, please don't do that type of guy. I mean, obviously he's had personalities before. He managed Manny Machado, and there were times where Machado was a little off the rails and a little, I'm gonna fight everybody. But I feel Buck Showalter is a guy that can kind of keep his players in check. I feel he's a guy that a lot of the players will respect.
Yeah.
Because they got to figure out some, it seems year one of Francisco Lindor seemed pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Lindor is going to be there for a long time. You're not going to move that type of contract.
No.
You wouldn't want to move that type of contract.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer is an excellent addition, but also Max Scherzer is a little bit of a fireball himself, but not a bad way. But I do think it seems he's the type of guy he'll use the analytics to his advantage, but he won't be crippled by the analytics. I think another New York manager kind of tends to be crippled by the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
Where he's not necessarily looking at what's happening on the field. And I think Buck Showalter will do a great job of that. He's a very good X's and O's guy. He's a very good culture guy. I'm going to give a comparison with him.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me a little bit of another guy that just made the World Series, Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
Where he's well respected. A lot of people like him. He just hasn't won the big game yet.
Yeah.
So maybe he can do that with the Mets. I think especially if they get Chris Bryant, Mets are easily the division favorites, despite having the world champions in your division.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be big.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that they really needed someone to bring all this together. You're right. There's some personalities there. As much as I kind of was rooting for them to bring Baez back, they're probably better off, without, he could be a little bit of a firecracker, with the thumbs down and all the nonsense, which the fans, I thought, forgave him when he started hitting. But Showalter is, I think, he's a calming presence also. I think, he never seems to get too high or too low. And I think that's needed in New York. And it's been a long time since he managed here, but I don't think the New York media and stuff like that will bother him one bit. I think he'll just roll with everything. I think this was the move that was the icing on the cake for me. And listen, we get excited every year. I said this last year, you got to win it on the field. You just never know when the season unfolds and you get injuries and stuff like that. And that's sort of, aside from Chris Bryant, to me, the last thing they need to do is really shore up their bench. Although I think with some of these moves, some of the guys that started last year will probably be on the bench. Like if they don't move Dom Smith, J.D. Davis, even Nemo or Jeff McNeil, some of those guys will probably be pushed out of starting jobs. But if they don't move them, then they'll shore up the bench. They may not be happy about that, but Showalter, I think, will make all that happen. I mean, that's a good problem to have. I think you have a little bit too much talent and not enough. But they had a really good bench last year. It was one of the bright spots with BR, and I don't think they're going to bring him back. But they had, a couple of guys that really produced off the bench last year. I'm excited. We'll see what happens. I can't, wait for this strike, lockout, whatever it is, to be over. I hear that they talked, or that at least that was an article that they spoke at least this week. But now this starts to get like into mid-January. I start to get a little nervous, right? Because next thing you know, it's February and it's spring training. And if they don't have a deal in place, then you start to see the season pushed back, which nobody wants to see. So hopefully they'll sit down and get all this resolved,
From what I read, they talked about like not important things, probably stuff like, oh, you want to do the DH? But like apparently once the new year starts, they're going to start. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's such a no-brainer. Come on.
We'll see.
Yeah, and I've been totally clear. I've told you this for years. I never liked the DH. I still don't. But my hands are up. I give up. I mean, everybody has the DH. It just doesn't make any sense that the National League still doesn't. But all right, let's shift gears and then we'll get to some fun facts. And I have a little bit of a different one to share today. But what are your thoughts on the Knicks this past week?
Well, this was going to be one of my fun facts, but I'll just say it now. Kemba Walker, the guy should be playing. He was benched for 9 games. The Knicks were 2-7 in those games.
Yeah.
In games that he's played, the Knicks are 11-10, which still isn't like amazing, but still like it seems like he does a lot better with the offense. It seems like he was just in a slump. Now, someone had brought up maybe there was an issue with Thibodeau and him because they also said that they didn't talk. And that kind of worries me because also like Thibodeau has that reputation of kind of being a little short with players.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It still seems like there's something with this team that's not fully right. I like the move. I don't think we've talked about it that much, but I really like the move of Mitchell Robinson coming off the bench.
Yeah.
It seems like he's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more relaxed, which I think is something that he needs. But still, like, I don't know what it is. It just seems like there's still something a little bit off with this team. By the way, Kemba Walker last night, 21 points. It was a pretty solid win. But I don't know. And then obviously there's a lot of issues with the Knicks with COVID, just like pretty much any other NBA team. So you can't really go there. It was fun seeing Damian Dotson back in a Knicks uniform yesterday. But yeah, I don't know. Like, good week. Do they play again before Christmas Day? Do they play tomorrow?
Sure. I'm not sure. I think they do. I'm not sure who it is, but obviously we know they play the Hawks, right, on Christmas Day. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Jamal Crawford, who is an analyst now, and one of our favorite Knicks. I thought Jamal Crawford had an excellent career with the Knicks. He was one of those really reliable guys. He criticized Thibodeau. He said it seems disrespectful that even in that game before he named him back into the starting lineup, where they were so short-handed and he still didn't play him, and I didn't say this, I think, last week, but it reminded me a little bit. It's different because I couldn't feel sorry for Stephon Marbury because he kind of earned the banishing that he got. But D'Antoni played him through the whole preseason, told him he'd be coming off the bench, and he never played him. When the regular season started, never said anything to him, which I thought was wrong. You have to be the bigger guy as the leader on that team. And I just reminded me a little bit about that. and we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but Kemba Walker, from the time he was in college to folks that know him from here in New York City, everyone has always said what a wonderful teammate he was. What a even when he wasn't playing, he wasn't sulking at the end of the bench. He was up rooting for everybody. But we don't know both sides, how him and Thibodeau vibe. Just have no idea. But I'm not sure why you just don't play him at all. Even if you play him for 10 minutes, I mean, just get a spark in there. Now the Knicks are going to have, and this is where Thibodeau is going to have to earn his money here, because they're going to have quite the good problem, but it could turn into a bad problem pretty quickly when all these guys come back, because this lineup that he's come up with worked. I mean, it absolutely worked. And but you got the two young guys, McBride and Grimes, who came in and lit it up, and they were playing just not good. They were playing great defense. Okay, and you had Kevin Knox, who finally showed us something. I think this is his fourth year in the league already, and he finally showed us something. So I think he deserves some minutes off the bench. Obi Toppin, obviously, you see the improvement in him night after night. People would think he should be playing him more, which is hard to do when he plays the same position as Randall. But and then you have RJ, who after a good start, then he was not so good for several games, and last 5 games or so before he went on the COVID list was playing extremely well. What do you do now with all these guys? Do you expand that rotation? Thibodeau's never been a 10, 11 guy rotation guy. He's more of an 8, rotation guy. So kind of from the school of Pat Riley, Jeff Van Gundy, and so I don't know. I just know that this is going to be another important stretch for them, because they've got to get back to 500. A couple of these teams in the East could get really hot. Next thing you know, you're in the 12th spot, and you're really on the outside looking in, 5, 6 games out, which is hard to make up in the NBA. And we're not even near the halfway point, or we're not at the halfway point yet. Starting to get a little near it, but like I said last week, I'm still worried about them, because now, the younger guys, they won't have any problem not playing. They'll play when they're called upon. And I think they've got some confidence now behind them. But like RJ Barrett has to play, right? And so now what do you do? And, Fournier stepped up finally these last week, although he was just missing shots left and right last night. But at least he had a little more confidence to take them. But Walker certainly proves himself. And you also have Derrick Rose coming back. And you're not going to sit him either if he's healthy. So it's going to be interesting how he juggles all that. And, I wouldn't send any of these guys to the G League. I think they proved that they're NBA players. 2 rookie guys. I know it was only a couple of games, but they looked really good. The fact that they looked good on defense was the deal breaker for me. Lots being made of how good the Suns are again this year. Are you surprised the Suns are this good again this year?
No, not really. We talk all the time about how good of a leader Chris Paul is.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when like a team finally makes it all the way through the playoffs, they either respond one of 2 ways. They either respond like, man, we're so tired with like the whole championship hangover, even though they didn't win the championship. Or they're like, okay, we're the best team in the league now. And I feel like the Suns are like, okay, we're the best team. I'm really hoping and looking forward to a potential Golden State Phoenix Western Conference Finals. It'd be the one that basically nobody predicted.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, oh, it's going to be the Lakers or maybe Denver. But hey, I'll take the Suns and the Warriors.
Clippers are so good. Yeah, I mean, there's some good teams out there. Clippers are good without Leonard, which has been surprising. They haven't seemed to miss a beat. There's good teams out there in the West. There's good teams in the East as well. I think you debunked that myth, last week or the week before about the West being that much better than the East. I think it is better, but not that much better, And there's so many Laker fans here in New York. I can't take it. I'm like, I don't have a second to like figure out what the Lakers' problems are. I mean, we got our own with the Knicks, Let me
The
ask you.
Lakers' problems are they're old.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, they're old, exactly. Let me ask you one more NBA question that didn't seem to be as big a story as I thought it would be. The Nets and Kyrie Irving. They caved. I hate to use that word, but I think that because part of me understands, right, that their job, the executive's job, Sean Marks, right, is their GM. His job is to bring home a championship. And that's another team that always seems to get hurt. And they're when Durant and Harden finally healthy, they're playing crazy minutes though. So and it's we're in December, and if they keep playing all these minutes, will these guys hold up? They're not young guys anymore. And Durant has just been unbelievable. But now they're in COVID. I think both of them, if I'm not mistaken. So they bring Kyrie back, and he immediately. I would assume if you go in COVID protocols that you got COVID, right? So unfortunately, he immediately, gets sick and gets in there. So what were your thoughts on the Nets saying, hey, we're bringing Kyrie back as a part-time player, which is, if they were going to do it now, why didn't they do it back at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, well, that's my first question is like, why didn't they just do it at the beginning? But I think the whole point of it was it's really hard to have like continuity when you can't have continuity. Like, it's not like Kyrie Irving is like the 7th or 8th best player on the team where like, oh yeah, well, like for example, we talked about Kevin Knox or guys like Alec Burks, guys on the Knicks that it's nice when they have a good game, but we're not relying on 25, 30 points a game from them.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving is supposed to be that guy where he's the 3rd best player on that team. Like, he's supposed to be that guy. So like having the chemistry, especially like with, I guess by the time they all get back, but like, let's say Durant and Harden are out longer than Kyrie is, like Kyrie would be the guy, but then they go home and he's not the guy. It just to me seems very off and on. And also like Kyrie isn't necessarily the guy that's just going to like blend into the team or anything like that. He tends to cause drama wherever he goes. That's why he left Boston. That's why he left Cleveland. So like, I think that's another thing that I'm a little about, but also would you really be that surprised if Kyrie was just like, yeah, I don't really feel like doing this anymore, and I'm going to just
I wouldn't be surprised. We've talked about that a lot. There's a big part of me that really wants to like him because I do think that socially, he's very socially active, and I think that this probably, and I don't know this for a fact or anything, but I just think that probably there's nights where I wouldn't be surprised if I went to like a homeless shelter down in New York City somewhere at 11 o'clock on a Friday night and see Kyrie serving, meals to people very quietly. I think he just has that type of heart for social issues. And I just think that these last few years, he probably hasn't put basketball first. Now, basketball is not the end all be all, right? I think he probably has it in a little bit of perspective. I think what he doesn't get is that he really lets his teammates down. And that's the stuff that you read about, that Durant was furious because Durant went to Brooklyn, to play with Kyrie and to win a championship with Kyrie. And, you miss his time too, even though he's in his prime and he's still relatively young. Seems like he's been playing the league forever, but, he came out, I think, when he was 19. So, but this should be his prime right now. But you wonder, did he lose his step, all this time he's out? It's one thing to practice and stay in shape. It's another thing to be in game shape. And he's been a little bit injury prone through his career as well. So yeah. I don't know what to make of all this. I think you're right. I think what you were hitting on is that it can certainly ruin the team chemistry. If you have a guy just playing on the road and not at home, it's odd. And it's not like like you said, I love the comparison. It's not like it's a bench player. This is next to Durant, who's probably the best player in the league right now. Kyrie is, I think, a better player than James Harden. No disrespect. I think Harden's done great here because he's been with Brooklyn, but Kyrie is definitely top 10 in the league, in players. So it's not like you're missing a small piece at home. So I just don't get it. The team was doing well. I mean, they have the best record in the conference, right? In the Eastern Conference. So I don't get, the timing was just really, really odd. So I guess we'll see how that unfolds,
And also, to me, another thing that doesn't make sense, it's not like I'd also understand it if it looked like there was a chance that some of the COVID restrictions would go away, but like New York City in particular is one of the top like spreaders of COVID right now. Also in that is Cleveland, but like it's not going away. Like I would be surprised if the vaccine mandate goes away before the NBA season is over. So it's not like oh well it'll be gone in a couple weeks anyway. So that I also don't fully understand. So I think, like you said, I think the timing's weird. Maybe they're playing the Lakers. Is that game is in Brooklyn, right?
I thought it was in LA, but I'm honestly not 100% sure.
Here, I'll look it up, but it is in LA.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of their thought, is like, oh well, we don't have Harden or Durant, but then also Kyrie's not going to play anyway because he's got COVID. So
I know,
and he's going to be out for 10 days.
Hey, but you made a point here, New York. I mean, 14 plays, Broadway plays shut down. The new mayor canceled his inauguration. Probably the New Year's Eve thing is going to go away. Yeah, it's risen up here again. That's why the timing was just so odd. Those mandates ain't going away anytime soon. So. All right. We'll watch that. This is going to be interesting as it unfolds when all these guys come back. All right. Fun facts. I'll do mine because yours are always far better. Mine's going to be a little bit different. It's not really a fact. I just want to talk about this for a second. And you and I have to make a commitment to see the whole movie. And I won't explain the circumstances. I think I did to you why I saw maybe a little bit more than half of American Underdog. It is definitely a Christian movie. And there were some things about Kurt Warner I really did not know. But here's just I just can't think of a better story than this. And I'll tell you the first half of the movie. I'm not going to give anything away that would ruin the movie for anybody or for you. But the first half really sets up the background, because as much as we've heard on the periphery of Kurt Warner, right, being in the Arena League, no one picking him up, when you watch it unfold in the movie, because there's a lot of other things that happen when he meets Brenda, his wife, his future wife, and he takes on, the responsibility of her two kids, and how they struggle, not just him. It's really amazing. There's a couple of scenes that'll make you say, I can't believe this is actually happening, right? What happened? And it was almost out of desperation that he jumped into the Arena League, which was a big unknown. I don't even know if the Arena League is still around. I know these other leagues are going to pop back up again in the spring, but and he was a bust in the Arena League at first, because the Arena League, if you ever watched a game, which I probably watched maybe part of one or two games, but it was just this really fast league. It was only 50 yards instead of 100. The wide receivers would get a jump on it before, what they weren't offside. They would start running down the field. And it was supposed to be just this fun, high scoring thing, up close, playing in these arenas. And so he couldn't get it because he wasn't a guy that was very fast. You had to take 2 steps back and throw the ball really fast because everybody would be on you so fast. So it took him a while to get that. But to go from what he came from, and I'm not just talking about the Arena League years. Again, watch the movie and see all the stuff he came from before even he got to the Arena League. And I think everyone will say with God, all things are absolutely possible. For him to go from where he came from to not only get to the Super Bowl 3 times, but to win Super Bowl MVP, to win league MVP, come really, really close. of Adam Vinatieri's last-second field goals and winning 2 straight Super Bowls. That was the start of the New England run with Tom Brady that first year when he took over. And then to take the Cardinals there, he had a rough road with the Giants. He was going to be the interim anyway with the Giants. And he was going to be the interim because Eli, was definitely going to be the guy. But boy, oh boy, he didn't play. He looked like he was really washed up. Cardinals take a chance on him, and he takes them to the Super Bowl. And that was a close game as well. Last second catch. I'm forgetting the wide receiver name. Yeah,
Santonio Holmes.
It's Santonio Holmes, right? Played with the Jets for a while after. It is just an amazing story. And then to the Football Hall of Fame. And when you look at his college career, you're just going to be so stunned that he went from, because his college career wasn't Mac Jones. It wasn't any big quarterback you can name. Trevor Lawrence, anybody that came out of college. It wasn't Kurt Warner. It was just the opposite. So it's an unbelievable movie. I can't wait to see the rest of it. I probably saw an hour and change of it, and I think it's about 2 hours long. I would highly recommend it. It's inspirational, and I can't wait to see the rest of it, because I'll tell you how much I missed. I had to leave just when he was about to get into the NFL and get ready to meet Dick Vermeil, who had a big part in his success, bringing him to the NFL. And I say back because I won't give away this scene, but there was a reason why he didn't make it with the Packers. The Packers brought him in with some high hopes, but there's one thing that he did that caused his Packers career to not flourish. So that's my fun fact. I can't believe a guy like that. When I say like that, in terms of he's very talented quarterback, but where he was at, to not only make it to the NFL, but to have the success that he did, it's absolutely a God thing. Absolutely a God thing. So anyway, that's my fun fact.
All right. I have a few here. I'm going to start with story we didn't really talk about that much at all, actually. And that's the official demise of one Urban Meyer. Fired as head coach of the Jags.
Yeah.
But did you know that he actually lost more games as Jags head coach than he did in his 7-year tenure with Ohio State?
I did not know that, although that doesn't surprise me. He had a lot of success at Ohio State. Wow.
Yeah.
That is man, oh man.
Yeah, we'll just leave that there, because that's a story we could go on for a little bit about.
Maybe we should talk about that a little bit next week, because that and there's no judging on this show, right? But man, oh man, Urban Meyer, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it next week, because it's a lot to unpack with him. But that's an interesting fact. I did not know. I should have figured that, because Ohio State rarely lost while he was there. So yeah, a lot of success.
Yeah. Another football one, Patrick Mahomes coming back and beating the Chargers. He's actually 12-0 against division opponents on the road throughout his career. So whether we're talking San Diego /LA, the Raiders, like the Broncos, he owns them on the road.
He really does. That's spectacular. Wow. And those aren't bad teams. Those are all, they're not great teams either, but Chargers, I think, are getting to be a very good team, but they're not bad teams. And wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Next one is a baseball one. So I couldn't verify this for sure, but from what I've seen, 2020, baseball had 43 games postponed due to COVID, which, like, when you consider it's a 60-game season, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Last year, from what I saw, they only had 4.
Wow.
I only saw the Twins and Angels had 2. The Yankees and Red Sox lost the first game out of the break. And then the Phillies and Nationals lost 1.
Wow.
I don't know if there was more, but definitely less than 43.
Wow.
So obviously, like, this week, a big story has been COVID. the NBA has postponed a few games, the NFL switching some stuff around, but and I think a lot of that has to do with timing, with COVID not being that bad in the summer. But baseball kind of went pretty swimmingly. Last thing I got here, this is a LeBron James one. As of Tuesday, LeBron has been in the NBA for more of his lifetime than he hasn't.
Wow.
So 6,753 days it's been since his draft day.
Wow.
And it was 6,752 days from his birth to draft day. So he's actually been in the NBA longer than he's been alive.
Wow. That is really interesting. Are you curious like me? I wonder what LeBron, what his post NBA life is going to be like. Like, does he do like Jordan, try to become an owner? Does he just totally leave basketball, period? Because he's also kind of a philanthropist. I'm really curious to see life after. It makes me feel old though, because I totally remember him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a high school athlete, and living up to those expectations. There were so many, Bryce Harper's another one who I think who's lived up to the expectations that, a youngster like that coming in. It's been amazing. I think we'll look back at LeBron's career and just, we compare him so much to Jordan and to Kobe and, but he's definitely been a unique player. Whether you agree or disagree with some of the things that he says, he's just been spectacular career. It's not over yet.
Yeah.
He still, I think, has a couple more years, because he just stays in this great shape. I mean, but that is so interesting. So he's been played more as he's been alive than he was before life. That's amazing. Amazing. All right, man. What else you got?
Yeah. I got one more here.
Okay.
So I'll phrase this as a question for you.
Okay.
The last Yankee not named Aaron Judge to hit 40 home runs, who do you think it was?
The last Yankee not named Aaron Judge to hit 40 home runs. Is it Jason Giambi?
Nope.
You waited a long time to answer that. It's probably some random dude that they picked up. Maybe Encarnacion. No, he wasn't with them long enough, right? Seems like he was hitting 35, 40 home runs every year. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to think of as many home runs as they hit. Was it Curtis Granderson?
It was Curtis Granderson.
Oh, wow.
There you go. 2011, 2012. So
wow.
Aside from Aaron Judge, it's been 10 years since the Yankees hit 40 home runs.
Wow. That's surprising with as many home runs as they hit, right? They lead the league in home runs, and yet they didn't have another guy hit 40. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Granderson, it'll be interesting to see if he becomes a manager, right? And it looks like that he probably wants to be. It's like he didn't get into the finals here with the Mets, but he was always a leader on any team that he was on. He's a very interesting player, so it used to kill me, man. And he did the same with the Mets. He had a couple of really good years with the Mets, but, he bat like 240, he hit 30 home runs and have like 70 RBIs. He would always have these weird years, With the Yankees, he was hitting 40 every year, it seemed like, because he had that kind of uppercut, left-handed swing that, would just go out in Yankee Stadium. But he was a very good player. So.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get the music going and take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.